Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. We have the semi-finals right around the corner. Aryna Sabalenka versus Emma Navarro is the match we're going to get into. We're going to be doing a preview and prediction video, and we have teamed up with Matchflow Graphics yet again. Before we do get into it, though, remember to that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating review if you're listening on a podcast platform. So Aryna Sabalenka is definitely the favorite, and I think she has been the favorite going into this tournament. She's now made the semi-finals at the US Open, and last year, of course, was the runner-up, losing to Coco Gauff. She hasn't won the US Open, but did win the Australian Open this year and last year, so she's looking like a dominant hardcourt force. For Emma Navarro, I mean, this is uncharted territory. She's never made a semi-final of a Grand Slam. She's coming up against a player who is extremely established and accomplished, but at least she has a 1-1 head-to-head with Sabalenka. So she has beaten her before, which is a real positive. They only played twice as well, so she doesn't have that scar tissue. She's only 22 years of age, as you can see on screen, and she's number 12 in the world, which is her peak ranking. For Sabalenka, she's number 2 in the world, which is, yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And of course, she has been number 1 in the world before as well. In terms of win predictor or win predictions, even, you can see Matchflow Graphics have given Sabalenka a heavy advantage, 80% win probability against Emma Navarro, and her coach is Anton Dubov. For Emma Navarro, it's Peter Ayers. In terms of other bits to talk about, well, we're going to not just talk about these nuggets of information, we're going to actually talk about the road to the semi-finals for both players and how long they've been on court, who they've played, and how they've looked. Then we're going to delve into their general form over the whole year. So we'll look at Emma Navarro, and we'll also look at Sabalenka's form. Then we will talk about it strategically and tactically, and ultimately I'll give you guys my prediction. Okay, so road to the semi-finals. Well, it's been pretty good for both players, I would say. I mean, they've come through some really good, really established and quality opposition, especially Emma Navarro, I have to say. Sabalenka had Priscilla Hon in the first round, Bronzetti as well, both straight set victories. The only set she's dropped so far in this tournament, as you can see, is Alexandrova, the number 31 seed, or ranked number 31 player, and she ended up dropping a set, ended up winning in 3 sets in 1 hour and 42 minutes. Elise Mertens, you can see, was a straight set victory, and Zheng Xinwen ended up being pretty straightforward, only an hour and 14 minutes, and she spent a total of 6 hours and 55 minutes on court in comparison to Emma Navarro, 7 hours and 28 minutes. So, I mean, it's not a huge difference, just half an hour or a bit more on court for Emma Navarro. I mean, it's not the end of the world. There isn't a massive disparity there. And unsurprisingly, her longest match was the match against Coco Gauff, which we'll get to in a second. But her first 2 rounds are very straightforward. An hour against Blinkova, that was an absolute mauling, to be honest, against Blinkova. And she just looked so accomplished. Emma Navarro came out of the blocks really quickly. Then Rus, again, an hour and 5 minutes, very quick. Kostyuk was a real battle, 3-setter, 1 hour and 55. And then Coco Gauff was the toughest of them all, 3 sets, the defending Grand Slam champion at the US Open, number 3 in the world, and 2 hours and 14 minutes ended up being a very physical affair. And then Badosa, a straight set victory there, and an hour and 14. Badosa was 5-1 up in that second set. She ended up losing 6 games in a row, and Navarro really turned it on, and Badosa didn't have the answers. In terms of the other bits to talk about, well, we're going to talk about their form now. So Emma Navarro has had a very impressive season. It's been a breakthrough year for her. 70% of matches won, which is really impressive. And on hard court, it's at 75%. 12 tournaments, 40 matches, 30 wins, and 10 losses. You can see at the top of the screen as well, against top 10 players. It's not been incredible, it has to be said. 13 matches, 5 wins, 8 losses at a 38% win rate. So she has fallen short more often than not against top 10 players anyway. And you can see the dark green rectangles are the players who are the top 10 wins. So there's still 5 wins there. Coco Gauff twice. once at the US Open, once at Wimbledon. Then also Paolini in Miami, which is a good win. Sabalenka in Indian Wells, which again, very good win. And Paolini again in Doha. So some good wins. And I think actually getting a couple of wins over someone like a Paolini in the golf is just really, really good for the confidence. And it also starts building a little bit of not fear, but I'd say discomfort for those players when they come up against her again. So good that she's building those positive head-to-heads. In terms of results in the year, well, it's been pretty good going. She's made 3 semi-finals at Toronto, Bad Homburg, and also in San Diego. A few quarterfinals. Obviously, she's made the quarterfinal of the US Open, and now she's in the semi-finals. But in Wimbledon, she also made the quarterfinals, making the quarterfinal there against Paolini, ended up losing to her, and then Sakari in Indian Wells ended up losing there as well. At Grand Slams, she's not made it further than the quarterfinals, and the first quarterfinal she played was at Wimbledon. So this is a really, really impressive run from the young American coming through the collegiate system, and now she's looking to go one step further and make a final. And look, the crowd, I imagine, is going to be on her side, despite Sabalenka being a very popular figure. The crowd, of course, are Americans, so you'd imagine they're mainly going to be in favor of Emma. In terms of Sabalenka, I mean, look, she has been pretty good this year. It's hard to really say who's been the best player of the year. Sabalenka, Swiatek. You could throw in maybe someone like Krejcikova, I guess, who won Wimbledon, but there hasn't been one dominant force. And if Sabalenka were to win the US Open, I think she then quite comfortably, I think, lays claim to the best player of the year. I don't think it even matters what happens the rest of the year, who's number one at the end. In my eyes, she would be the best player of 2024. In terms of results, 80% win rate, and against top 10 players, this is what's really impressive, 73% win rate. She's only lost 3 matches to top 10 players out of 11 matches. You can see again the dark green rectangles are the ones where she's beaten top 10 players. And yeah, I mean, she's been good. Zheng, you can see, beat her in the quarterfinals. Then Swiatek and Pegula in Cincinnati to win the title. Ostapenko in the quarterfinals of Rome. Semi-final in Madrid beat Rybakina. And then at the Australian Open, she played 3 top 10 players back to back to back. I mean, look at that run. It's not easy. Seidel, fine. But then for Vitva, okay, you could say not amazing, but talented young player. But she's not quite accomplished and established yet. Sorenko, fine, okay. Again, not maybe the toughest opponent for her on paper. But then she had to play Anisimova, who is tough. Then Krejcikova, who's just won Wimbledon, of course. And, at the Australian Open, from what I remember, she was fit. Coco Gauff, who just come off winning the US Open. And Zheng Xinwen, who's won the Olympic gold this year. I mean, not a bad run. In terms of other results, so she's won Cincinnati and she won the Australian Open. She lost in the finals of Rome and Madrid, both to Swiatek, and has made a semi-final at Washington as well. In terms of hard court win percentage, it's been the highest out of all the surfaces this year. She's won 82% of matches on hard court, 79% on clay, and then on grass, it was just the one tournament, so only 50%, but that's because she only played Berlin. So not really much to talk about there. Didn't play Wimbledon, missed it due to a shoulder injury. In terms of tactics, so we can break it down, there's a few things to discuss here. And I think, look, this match is really in Sabalenka's hand. I do feel that, and it might be a very black and white way of looking at it, but I do think it is just the way it is right now. Sabalenka, in terms of ability and form and just how she's striking the ball, the only way that I see her not winning this match, not actually winning the whole tournament, is if she self-destructs in some capacity. And that could happen because we'll talk about the physical elements in a second, but I actually think the mental element could be a potential factor here. She likes having the crowd on her side. She really does. Now, when she came up against Coco Gauff last year at the US Open final and the crowd were clearly backing Coco, I think that had an adverse effect on her. I'm not saying it's the reason she lost the match, But what I am saying is that I don't think it's a particularly good thing, and I don't think it is a helpful factor for Sabalenka if the crowd is against her. I don't think she handles it as well as someone like a Novak Djokovic on the men's side, for example, who soaks it up, or on Medvedev. Even, for example, Daniel Collins doesn't seem to let it bother. She doesn't really care. There's a few players where they're not really fussed about it. I think for Sabalenka, she enjoys having the crowd with her. I think when the crowd is against her, I think she can sometimes struggle a little bit, and it does put her off slightly. And I think it can have some sort of effect on her level. So that's something to keep an eye out on. And Emma Navarro, of course, as I said, she's come through the college system. She's very much going to be in tune with the fans. She would be silly not to try and really tap into that. I haven't seen her really try and rile up the supporters. If there was any time to do it, it would be against Sabalenka. If she's losing, if Sabalenka comes out firing, Emma Navarro needs to really try and utilize the support that she has in Arthur Ashe, because the biggest stadium in the world, it should be the loudest, and it should be the most intimidating if you're a player and the majority of the crowd are against you. No one's saying they should be booing. No one's saying they should be aggressive or abusive in any way, stretch, or form. But if the crowd are cheering loudly for Emma Navarro and are quieter for Sabalenka, that makes a big difference. I'm telling you, for some players, I think Sabalenka, it can have some effect on her from what I've seen. In terms of the physical elements, look, I mean, Sabalenka's serve has been phenomenal throughout the tournament, and just I think since she's reconstructed it with a biomechanist, I think it's changed a lot. Not too many double faults in comparison to before. She's really cut down on that, which is great. She's hitting her spots, and then the forehand is just been so explosive. Her backhand is actually the most reliable out of the two, but when her forehand is on, it's just, I mean, it's frightening. It really is. She's been hitting at 80-mile-per-hour average for the tournament, which is the highest of the women's and men's. So she's been hitting it harder, or has hit it harder on average than Yannick Sinner, Medvedev, Alcaraz, Djokovic, all those guys. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And yeah, it might not be as heavy a ball with a spin potentially, but I mean, the velocity she's able to just generate is mind-boggling, in all honesty. And the other girls are just struggling, and we saw that against Zheng Xinwen. We've seen that against everyone this tournament so far. And Pagula, for example, in the final of Cincinnati, said, you're serving like Serena. She is giving off that type of energy right now. She is giving off a Serena type energy. She can hit winners off both wings. She's serving really well. Her return has improved so much. She's completely destroying people's second serves. If they're not, 100-mile-per-hour plus second serves, or at least serves her into corners and making her guess and really think, she's just destroying them. She's actually destroying people on their second serves. And then athletically as well, she has just improved so much. Her conditioning and just her general agility is actually really impressive for someone of her height as well, because she is one of the taller girls on tour, and she definitely has worked on that a lot. She's able to track down drop shots a lot. And actually, talking of drop shots, she has improved on that aspect as well. She's got a bit of variation in her game, which is fantastic. We know that, in doubles, she was always a pretty good doubles player as well. But we'll occasionally see her come forward, hit a swing volley or a volley, and it normally looks relatively natural. She's working on, comes to that more generally, I think, anyways. But she's also utilizing a drop shot, which is great, because when she's pummeling opponents from the back of the court and they're 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters behind the baseline, it's not a bad option to have. And it doesn't even need to be perfect. She's got so much power that that drop shot, it just needs to be a change up, and she should win the point from it. And she's even at times hit a backhand slice to just vary things up. So she's added a bit of touch to her game, and it's going to be extremely tough, I think, for Emma Navarro to really get through this. I think the keys to winning for Sabalenka, we get on to Emma Navarro. For Sabalenka, it's going to be keep her calm. Keep her calm, keep her cool, and just do what she's been doing. Serving well, hitting her spots, being aggressive on the forehand, choosing her moments to pull the trigger in terms of shot selection. in those rallies from the back of the court, and then also on return be proactive on that second serve. Really put pressure on Emma Navarro's second serve. We saw Navarro did it really well against Coco Gauff at Wimbledon. She said after when we talked to her, and she said, "Look, I was trying to really take the ball early on the second serve against Goff so that she would have to think twice. She then started going for more on her second serve and she was missing. She started hitting a couple of double faults or she was struggling and then or she went a bit more safe on the first serve because she was like, I need to make my first serve. And so then it nullified this first serve a little bit because Goff went safer. And similarly here, if Sabalenka does that to Navarro, then she's got a win from that. So definitely something to look out for. And I think the forehand is going to be really, really key for me. If it's on, it's going to be very, very tough for Navarro. And she just, as I said, needs to pull the trigger in the right moments because she needs to be patient because Navarro is a very good defender and she's extremely good at being able to get around the court. She knows her way around it. And she's got the speed, I think, to really stretch out some points more than some other players. For Navarro, look, I mean, she's had a really good run. She's a pretty solid all-round player. She doesn't have many weak or like glaring weaknesses at all. I think the serve obviously is a bit more functional than Sabalenka. She's not going to hit a lot of aces off it, but she can hit her spots at times. The second serve, I think she needs to be careful about because, it's interesting you would potentially go to the backhand of an opponent, but I'd argue that Sabalenka's forehand is actually, on return anyway, is actually the weaker side, similar to, say, Zverev, who has a phenomenal backhand return, but the forehand return can sometimes leave a little bit to be desired. I think the same might hold true for Sabalenka. And I also think for Navarro, and those forehand to forehand exchanges, she needs to be careful there because they're not going to be cat and mouse points like she had against Goff. And her forehand can break down at times, Navarro. So I think she needs to be the one to try and be a bit proactive first, get into the backhand to backhand. I actually fancy her chances more in the backhand to backhand exchanges. I think she's got a very solid backhand. And I also think depth is going to be really key for her because she's not going to be able to hit Sabalenka off the court. But what she can do is kill her with depth. And, Sabalenka will not be able to generate a huge amount of winners if Navarro is hitting the ball 1 meter, inside the baseline and closer, because that's when it becomes difficult. Sabalenka has to start taking the ball early then if she wants to hug the baseline and, getting down low. And she's not going to be crunching winners consistently if Navarro's doing that, making her move around, making her feel uncomfortable, mixing it up with the slice. The variation is going to be key to make sure that Sabalenka has different looks, different spins, different speeds to look at. And the timing is not so easy. She can just keep on bashing the ball, bashing the ball, bashing the ball, and then finishing off points as she likes. So, yeah, Navarro has to really come out and play confidently, make a lot of first serves, and utilize her variation and her speed. And, she's got a decent drop shot as well. So utilize that when she can as a change up, the backhand slice as well, as we mentioned. And yeah, she's going to have to come out and be creative, I think, is really the crux of the matter and really compete and try to let the occasion not overawe her, which generally she's been very good at when she's made latter stages or played big players. She doesn't seem to be overawed by the occasion, which is a really positive attribute to have. In terms of my prediction, I'm actually going to go with Sabalenka in straight sets. I think she will come out and I think she will be a dominant force. I think there might be a set where Emma Navarro gets close to a tiebreaker or 7-5 or 6-4 because I just think she's a real fighter. But I just think it might be a little bit too soon for Emma Navarro at 20, wherever it is, 22, 23 years of age to get the win here. I just think it's asking a lot, in my opinion, anyway, for her to just come out and win her first ever Grand Slam semi-final against arguably the favorite in the tournament. Let me know in the comment section below who you picked and why. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well. We'll see you on the next video.